You're probably brand new and looking to figure out, what am I doing? How do I play this game? What do I need to know? But most importantly, if I'm going to start playing the game right now, how can I start winning? That's what I want to show you. I want to give you 5 starter decks to just kind of get the ball rolling. And the idea of this, literally just copy and paste the deck. This is not me taking deck credit these are very common, popular decks right now for brand new players, and give you a little bit of diversity also at the same time, so that way you can grow with the game as you begin to grow your collection. Let's simplify it with 5 simple decks. You're probably going to start with something like this, an ongoing deck. And this is my personal combination of Series 1 mostly cards that you should really focus on, right? This is exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for as many ongoings as possible, and you have that automatic synergy that is built into a couple of core cards. Captain America being one of them, where all other ongoings in that lane are going to be getting +2 power just because they exist in that lane. So total, you're looking to stack that upwards to 5, 7, 9 power worth for only 3 energy. In a great ongoing deck, Captain America in a very early series is incredibly strong. And now for newer players, the second you have your hands on him, you want to start running an ongoing deck. The question is, what cards do you want to synergize with that? And I went back and forth about Namor, who is a very strong singular card. He's a 4/6 that gets +5 if he's the only card in that lane. So your strategy for Namor is you're trying to supplement his lane with other pieces. For example, Mr. Fantastic and Claw both have the ability to reach into opposite lanes from where they are playing. Claw is only going to the right, and Mr. Fantastic puts to adjacent locations. So if you want to get most value out of Mr. Fantastic, you want to put him in the middle lane. So that means more often than not, his best possible home is going to be the right-hand lane consistently, because you could have a Claw reach in there, you could have a Mr. Fantastic reach in there, and then Spectrum can also add +2 power because he's an ongoing card, as she on the final turn will give +2 to all other ongoing cards that have been put down. My only real be careful moment here is Lizard with Onslaught, because it'll double the ongoing effect. But if Lizard is in a lane that has -4 power applied to it because the opponent filled it up, that means that it would turn into -8, and now his total value is -2 power. Ongoing decks are going to be your best friends when you're first starting the game, and it gives you a good opportunity to not just learn that archetype, but to focus on locations, because locations are the 13th card of Marvel Snap. Learning them and getting to know the little details of this archetype is a great way to start your journey in Marvel Snap. Another way to do so is going to be a Zoo deck. You often hear it as Kazoo because of Kazar, who gives you +1 power as an ongoing card to all of the 1-cost cards in the game, on the board in your side. So if you have down lots of high power, if you will, 1-cost cards, you have an Ant-Man that can be a total of a 1/5. Squirrel Girl puts out 1 power cards to each location. If you hit right with the Raccoon, who you typically want to save for the end of the match, and it's a more targeted experience at that point to kind of know where your opponent's going to go, that's another 1/5, and then you can continue to beef that up with another +1 from Kazar and another +1 from Blue Marvel, but Blue Marvel hits everything, including the Bishop, the Angela, the Strong Guy, etc. This is straight up a Zoo deck for Series 1, starting to bleed into Series 2 that will survive. The only careful thing to be in here is Blade. Blade will discard the rightmost card from your hand. So whichever one is sitting over here, that one's safe. That's your left. Remember, let's do this together, right? This is your right. See, I got you there. So Bishop is going to continue to ramp towards the end, where, in my opinion, my favorite way to play this style of deck is to actually save most of these for the final turn. You want to play Blade on the final turn. You want to play Elektra on the final turn. If you can save your Ant-Man, your Blade, your Rocket Raccoon, and Elektra, while go ahead and sprinkle down the Squirrel Girl, the America Chavez, and the Nightcrawler early, you're in a good position with this deck, because then Strong Guy will see almost no cards in the hand, and he will convert into a 3/9, which is a load of power very early on in the game, and Bishop will also scale that high too. A Kazoo deck, or a Zoo deck, if you will, is another great way to start if you're going into the beginning era of Marvel Snap. Now, this isn't the only way to play Zoo. This one is leaning a little bit heavier away from that blue Marvel, let everybody have something, but also synergizes with some ongoing elements so you can choose your own path. You've learned from the first two decks. Now you have decisions that you can start making earlier on in your battles. You have the idea of Medusa, who's a great 2/5, drop it down super early. But depending on what you drew, you could go down the ongoing line with Colossus and Mr. Fantastic, Captain America, even Punisher in this deck, and then later on the final turn end with Spectrum. Or you could start sprinkling down all of your 1-cost cards and then look to supplement it with Khazar later on. And the rest of this is just filler fodder to round out winning the 2 locations, never 3 needed, only 2 locations that you're gonna wanna take over. So my recommendation is start with the ongoing deck, then move to a Zoo deck, and then hybrid the 2 to kind of start learning how to make different decisions as you go through the progression of Marvel Snap. In addition, you're going to be tempted to do on reveal decks because you're going to see incredibly strong cards like we just mentioned. Medusa, Hawkeye's a very strong card. Jessica Jones is a staple for so many of these decks early on in your journey, but they do take a little bit more finesse. And as you transition into Series 2 and you start getting more of these extra key pieces, learning the order of those on reveals versus ongoing, which is typically going all the time, this is a very different style of deck. So you're looking to build it and play knowing a turn ahead. This is the next level of learning your decks in Marvel Snap. It's, I know the reveal order, I know what's going to happen. Where do I want to set up that final Odin? Where is the Ironheart going to need to be on turn 3? So that way I can Odin that lane later on and it will benefit me. That's the kind of decision making that happens with on reveal decks. Nightcrawler gives you some flexibility to move around in case if there's a locked location that happens to show up on the 3rd turn, for example. Wolfsbane also recently got a buff because of his meta relevance in these very beginning stages of Marvel Snap. So he's a very strong card. He's a total of a 3/8. That's not something to sleep on. Groot, same exact idea as you saw it with Rocket Raccoon in the earlier deck. You want to pinpoint exactly where they're going to play. And if you guess it right, you are rewarded with a full 3/7. Jessica Jones is also an incredibly strong card. It's a 4/10, leave it off to a lane as is. Don't play anything that lane on that turn. It's a 4/10. You can't be upset about that. Play something else like a White Tiger and then reactivate it a second time with Odin. So you put tigers in random positions. Randomness and RNG are going to be your best friends, and they're also going to become your worst enemies in this game. But the more you learn how to mitigate that bad RNG, the better you will be as a Marvel Snap player as you begin this journey, now heading into Series 2, and you're going to see much more complex and complicated decks, like Move. Move is very often respected and disrespected in Marvel Snap. It is one of those archetypes that is very difficult because you're always thinking not just about where the power is, but where the power needs to start and location space, not just the locations themselves. You only have 4 spaces, sometimes only 1, 4 spaces in every location. So knowing when a card is moving in and moving out is now taking what you learned from the on reveal deck about the order of operations and understanding this has to happen and then this has to happen and then it's done versus the ongoing that's in there. The move decks are now pushing that knowledge. It's you setting up like a chess game. Several turns in advance, you're preparing your cards for what could be a Heimdall at the very end, where it moves the entire board of your side over to the left. I'm like, it's mirrored in my camera, I'm like, to your left. You get the idea. So you get the flexibility of knowing where that's going, but your opponent doesn't necessarily know that. You, as you're building, are gonna need to start messing with different orders of operation, like learning how Hulkbuster works. The fact that it attaches to a card and then is recognized as that merged card being the last card played is a huge synergy for Iron Fist to get right. And you're gonna have to experience it yourself and play this type of deck to truly understand it. Cloak having that last ability to move a couple of pieces, maybe on turn 5 before you set up a Heimdall on turn 6. There's a couple of ways you can really stack this deck, and it's gonna come down to where does the Vulture go, how many multiple men you get on the board, and the juke of do I Heimdall or not. If you can learn a move deck and continue to climb with it, Congratulations, you are ahead of the curve in Marvel Snap. But any of these decks, whether it's the very first ongoing deck that we started to talk about, or move into the on-reveal decks later on because of the little pieces you learned along the way, you are setting yourself up for success in Marvel Snap by understanding the core mechanics, giving yourselves decks that will have flexibility for you to learn the locations and the other mechanics about the game, including best opportunities and moments to snap. And then as you get into these super complex decks at the end, believe me when I say, as you get into series 3, 4, and 5, those core mechanics are going to be incredibly important to have down so you don't have to think about them. 5 decks for you right there to start off your journey with Marvel Snap. If you like this type of content, you know the drill. Comment below what you want to know, and we can all help you. We're a giant community. My name is Guest, also known as ItsGuestGaming. I live stream, I make these videos, and I try to inform you on as much about Marvel Snap as possible, sometimes directly through them in events like the Golden Gauntlet, which you can learn more about below. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next time.